Good evening and welcome to the public board meeting for the Kingston City Land Bank. Today's date is February 28th, 2022. My name is Mike Gilliard. I'm the executive director of the organization. We do ask for members of the public to limit their public comments to no more than 2 minutes per speaker. And with that, I will turn it over to Daniel Cantor, our board chair.
Thank you for that gorgeous introduction. Welcome to our February 2022 board meeting. By my count, I think this is our 40th board meeting as an organization. So congratulations, everybody. We'll try to keep it brief tonight. We have a lot to get through. So last month, we have kind of been through a long and exciting journey through open meetings law this month, which we weren't really expecting, but what the exciting takeaway here, I think, is that we'd all been sort of operating under the assumption for a long time that a majority of the board, so anything over 4 people constituting a committee, would trigger it being a public meeting. It appears that that's not actually the case if the committees are advisory, which all of our committees essentially are. So the ACD committee actually already has 5 members. So this to say, if there was a committee that you really wanted to be on that didn't have space, let me know and we can probably appoint you. So that's exciting. The Legacy Cities stuff is moving along really well. Mike is championing this effort very gracefully, given a lot of kind of ins and outs. And so we're more or less on track. We should probably close in late spring and be able to start those projects. It's really exciting stuff. So stay tuned. The architect task force reunited to interview and evaluate the architects that came in as a result of the RFP that we put out for the Legacy Cities project. Huge thank you to Owen for really making all of that happen. So we got a really good response. I think we had, Owen, how many? 12, 10?
We had 10 respondents.
Thank you. 10 really solid proposals. We sort of whittled down to 4. We interviewed 3. And so stay tuned on that, but seems promising. I think it's going to be great. We got news, everybody got news, that the city of Kingston has released an RFP for additional legal services to kind of clean up the foreclosure process and properties that have had clouded title. Those of you who have been around for a long time know that that's been an enormous challenge for us. So that's very, very exciting. And huge thank you to our new director of housing initiatives for getting that out there quickly. We got a fun little mention in the Kingston, not little mention, we got an article in the Kingston Wire about our work and the houses that we've done so far and the houses that we're working on. And to my knowledge, we're pretty much the only organization presently creating affordable first-time home ownership opportunities in the city of Kingston. And we've done it 3 times over and have 2 more on the way. And that's exciting. What else? Mike and I met with Mayor Steve Noble and Comptroller John Toohey. It was a long-awaited meeting that got pushed back a couple of times, but we finally had it. Very productive, I think. So basically, it was to discuss the sort of future of the land bank and city of Kingston relationship, which has been just sort of hard to navigate for the last few years. So I feel really good about it. I think the next step is to work with Council Member Mohammed and Council Member Scott Childress to kind of really solidify a proposal that we can bring to John and Steve and hopefully sort of have their endorsement of the plan so that the council feels confident in moving forward with it. So that's feels like big progress and was a really long time coming. couple little pieces of housekeeping. If you have not completed your ABO training yet, please, please, please do so. We could get in trouble if you don't. So I can send around the link again, but like I mentioned, it's real easy. Register over email. It's like an hour and a half. You're just sitting there on the phone listening mostly. It's not such a bad thing to have to do. And then yeah, and we have Kyle here in attendance tonight. Mike went on a extremely extensive search to try to find a qualified candidate to fill our development project manager role, which we authorized with the budget a few months ago. So we're very excited to meet you, Kyle. Thank you for joining us, and look forward to working with you. I think that's what was that? I think that does it for me. The only other thing is that in order to move forward, I might flub this, Mike, I'm sorry. In order to move forward on the Legacy Cities project, we need to establish a Housing Fund Development Corporation. If you have any questions about that, please ask Mike and not me, but I vaguely understand it, and it's just a necessary part of this process. So I'm going to call for a vote, but if there's any discussion that needs to happen first, now's the time.
Daniel, let me be a pain in the neck for two issues.
All right.
One is, do we have to say where we are?
Oh,
Second,
no anymore.
second, are you looking for a motion to form the corporation before we discuss it?
We can do it that way, or we can just have a motion to form the corporation. But yeah, we should probably do the weird physical address thing. So we're going to do that real fast. My name is Daniel Cantor. I am at 142 Clinton Avenue in Kingston, New York. Bob, where are you?
I'm at 122 Wilson Avenue in Kingston, New York. Bob Dennison.
Thank you. Do Kyle and Mike have to do this? Probably not Kyle. Definitely. Okay. Minya, where are you taking this meeting from?
Minya DeJohnette, 258 Main Street.
Owen doesn't have to do it right. Bartek.
Bartek Stardai, 354 South Wall Street.
Nate.
Sorry, I was muted. Nate Hennigan at 20 President's Place.
Aaron.
Aaron Chilowich, 75 Madison Avenue, Kingston.
Awesome. Thank you for reminding me, Bob. All right. I will entertain a motion to either just move forward with this or to discuss.
I'll make a motion that we establish a housing fund development corporation for the purpose of participating in the Legacy Cities program from the state of New York and constructing 5 houses.
Second,
Any discussion?
Do you want to give a little background on this, Mike, about what the deal is and who the corporate officers are and all that kind of stuff?
Happy to. So the HDFC entity will be the borrowing entity that we put together to take the loan to be responsible for the pass-through of the subsidy from the state. It's incredibly reasonable and common as a vehicle to establish this for primarily 3 reasons. One is that HDFCs do not pay mortgage recording tax. The second is they also do not pay sales tax. And the third is that it shelters the liability to the land bank by placing it in a separate entity. So those are the 3 reasons that it's very reasonable and common to establish such an entity. It will be comprised of its own group of 3 members. So we have a joint venture partner, the principal of Maida Construction. Maida is the joint venture partner. The principal's name is Robert Prost. He is our JV partner in this venture. And Daniel and I will also be members of this HDFC. So each of us have a vote, and we'll be making decisions with the money that the partnership will be spending and reporting back out to the board on the progress. But that's the reason for establishing a separate entity.
Does that make sense?
Give it a couple of years, we'll have a dozen of them.
I know. We got to get them named properly in my mind, so I can keep them straight.
Should we have a contest? Cool. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, of course.
So we have a motion and a second. Barring further discussion, all in favor of establishing a housing fund development corporation? Motion passes unanimously among our members in attendance. Thank you, everybody. Okay, moving on. We have a public comment period. As usual, we like to limit to 2 minutes per speaker. We have, I guess, technically 2 members of the public tonight. So now is the time. Aneshka, it's wonderful to see you.
Yeah, I have nothing. I'm just here to be with you all, support you all, and spirit.
Can't stay away. I like it. Okay, then we will move on from that. And with that, Mike, you're up.
Thank you. Happy to, and great to see everyone. Welcome again to new board members. As Daniel said, it's not my 40th meeting, but it is the 40th meeting of the Land Bank. That's amazing. But welcome. We're so excited with all the different things that are falling into place this year to be working with you, and I've really appreciated the engagement that we've had kind of back and forth during the month. So thank you for that. To jump into the pre-development section, we have, as Daniel mentioned, some pretty substantial updates, not least of which I'm sure you all spent the weekend reading the city's ARPA funding plan, which includes $1.1 million for the Kingston City Land Bank. Full transparency, it was somewhat of a surprise to me to see that number, and a very welcome surprise. And I think we're still in the feeling out stages as to what that looks like, but it's been clarified by the city that the next steps require common council approval. So Daniel and I, thank you, Daniel, for shepherding the process of getting us in there and having those conversations, but to be continued on what that looks like and what the timelines look like and what the specifics are. But that was an amazing outcome that seemed to be unlocked by that meeting that we had that Daniel mentioned on the 22nd. And thanks, Daniel, for your leadership to get us to that meeting and to just keep the whole thing moving in the right direction. I think I agree it was an incredibly productive meeting. I came away from it understanding that we may be in a position to be looking at up to 12 new single-family houses possibly this year. And that was incredibly significant. And if you've been here for a while, you've been watching, if you're one of 5 people watching the YouTube videos and recordings of this, you may know that it's been a while that we've been hoping to have that conversation. So super exciting. Another piece of our pipeline conversation includes a discussion with the city to possibly propose some purchase prices for between 6 and 9 of the properties off the original 2018 list of 36 properties. So stay tuned for that, but I know we'll be discussing it on the committee level, and it's just exciting to have so many things all of a sudden to be able to work on. Also, I think in the pre-development stage, we should maybe just go through the. Sorry.
Can I ask a question about that last item?
Please do.
So from my understanding, and I know I'm new to the board, but the purchase prices prior to this, I know were basically the cost of back taxes, which was kind of set in agreement with the Novo Foundation and the city. But that there had been a question about whether we would be able to move to the kind of more typical $1 purchase price. Is this to say that there's maybe room for negotiating a purchase price that is beneath the price of back taxes, but is above $1? Is that my understanding of what you're saying? Is that correct?
I think the purchase prices will be somewhere between $1 and the full price of back taxes. I don't know. I think that's a fair assessment of where the conversation sits right now, but it was discussed. I don't personally, I hope, Daniel, that's a fair assessment of.
You're muted, Daniel.
I know how this works. We've proposed a few different potential structures that make much more sense to us than the status quo. So yeah, I think Mike's evaluation is correct. I think we're still a ways out politically from a $1 situation here in Kingston, in spite of our very progressive government. So yeah, somewhere in the middle is where we're, I think, targeting.
I appreciate
But
it.
much more sort of predictable and consistent. Because of course, part of the problem right now is that the back taxes are just completely irrespective of anything having to do with the property. So it makes it very hard to justify many of the purchases because they're insanely expensive.
And it was discussed on that call that future rounds, future acquisitions would come with much lower tax burdens just due to the timing and the efficiency of the process, and sort of also the buildings would not have been vacant for as long. So there are a lot of things that would line up with retooling the process, which is what it feels like is happening, which is great. By the way, just want to acknowledge Ilana. Looks like Ilana jumped on. Hi, Ilana.
Hi, Lana.
Hi, if I'm being official, it's me in a car driving back from the airport. So my location will continue to change.
Welcome. Talking about a little bit more about legacy cities. We have 7 properties that are secured for pre-development, 5 of which are the legacy cities. That's Rogers, Guild, German, East Union, and Hurley. We continue to work through credit approval with the bank. That'll be followed by board approval with the state. The critical path for setting the closing date, once those 2 things have been achieved, will be getting the architect to draft drawings in a way in which we can close. It might be 3 buildings first, followed by 2. It might be all 5. We kind of have to get into discussion around that with the state. But I want to give a big shout out to Owen, as Daniel said, for managing and wrangling all of us internally and externally and with our partner and getting to decisions around this. It's greatly appreciated. It's under incredible time constraints. And now we have the roadway to get to closing. I'm thinking closing, we should say, is by May. That's a little bit of a shift from last month because the credit committee at the lender slipped one of their cycles, but I don't see any reason to think that it's not happening in April or May. And super excited about it. That's why Kyle is here, by the way. So we're so happy that Kyle is a part of this conversation, and I'm incredibly excited to hopefully work with him on this, and the time is perfect for it. And we're getting a lot of opportunities thrown our way, and it just really feels like on the pre-development side, my doom and gloom updates for the past several months I'm going to start smiling a lot more on these. So what that's worth. 151 3rd Avenue is a property that is the only vacant parcel that we have in our portfolio. We purchased it. It has clean title. We were approached by a contiguous property owner to possibly receive a donation for that contiguous property that would allow us to build probably 2 structures, either 2 single-family homes or possibly 2 duplexes as of right. But of course, the challenges are with the title issues on that property. There were 2. I've resolved 1 in the past month. I'm working on the second one. I still expect closing this quarter is possible. And closing would just mean that we receive the donation of the property. It doesn't mean that we move forward with any of the development, for which we're discussing some joint venture partnerships. That's my update on that. And then last but not least, certainly, is 111 Downs is the last property in our portfolio that we haven't discussed. That is, I believe, being considered more towards a legacy city part 2, given some movement that we'll talk about at the committee level with some of the other properties. And that is the end of pre-development, unless there are any questions. Anything? Okay. 2 homes under construction. Obviously, Franklin, 124 Franklin. Owen will get more into the construction level updates at the top of the ADC committee meeting. But from my perspective and timeline wise, our goal is to rebid the scope of work that we did not complete ourselves probably next month. And that will be a big piece of the puzzle. And thanks again, Owen, for wrangling and managing all these variables and moving pieces and getting all the work that we said that we would do ourselves done on schedule and on budget. It's greatly appreciated. And then finally, the second home under construction is 149 Greenkill, for which we're anticipating a certificate of occupancy by July. and Owen will report more on the details, but that's my update on our under construction homes. Sales updates, there's been a discussion that I think we'll probably also talk about at ADC about entering into a sales and marketing campaign just for 149 Greenkill. The thinking includes the idea that the home will be done first before Franklin. We don't want to have vacant homes. It's probably a good thing to continue to show opportunities to members of our community and interested people that they can buy homes from us. It is a bit of a lift to do a campaign just for one home, but it's for discussion. We've identified 2 partner homeownership counselor organizations that would work with us on that effort. I'm excited about that. And there are other options for how we could do the sales and marketing. We might also consider talking. Hi, Erica. Welcome. We might also consider doing Franklin and Greenkill together, or something may happen with legacy cities and it looks like clustering this into 7 homes at once. But it's for discussion, and it does feel like Greenkill will probably be the first one to go up for sale. And then Pathway 3 sales, just for context, this is at 108, 110 Henry, the 2-family property that we own, and 24 Hamilton, the single-family property that we own. We received proposals on the 13th of December. And thank you so much, Bob, for overseeing the ADC committee's diligent and exhaustive research into sifting through the various proposals and making decisions around that. The votes are tonight, and I'm sure more will be discussed at the committee level. My most exciting section of reporting out is on the funding side. I already don't want to bury the lead, but it's worth mentioning again, the $1.1 million in possible funding through ARPA from the city, super exciting. The Legacy Cities subsidy grant for the the Legacy Cities subsidy grant will begin funding next month. So that's great. That's ahead of the closing, and so everything's in order for that. The enterprise grant extension of $325,000, not only has it been awarded, but thank you, Erica, for everything you're doing to get this set up and funded. We're very close. We're very close. I imagine within a few weeks that will start to come across to us. This is for hard costs to complete Greenkill and Franklin, so it's greatly needed and appreciated. And the direct grant program. So this is something that was a new initiative for the organization this year to work with Forsyth Street Advisors, kind of the premier national affordable housing consulting firm. I've been working with them and have some very exciting updates, but nothing I think at this level to announce, but they will be making a presentation to the board in the coming months. So stay tuned for that, but it still remains the goal to have something that's in a presentable format to request funders to fund it at the end of June. So that's where that is. Had one last piece in my other category. Unfortunately, I don't think Jeannie is here. I wanted to see where she was on the tech side. On the board member bios, I don't see Julie here either, but those are the only 2 that I'm still waiting on. So thank you very much for everyone else for giving me your bios. I was just hoping to put them all up at once, but I may start doing that next week. ABO training, Daniel already mentioned. If you've completed it, thank you. If you haven't, Minya pointed out actually that you have 12 months from becoming a new board member to complete it. So I misspoke at the last meeting when I thought that it was all had to be done by March, but what do I know? So thank you, Minya, I learned something new about all this process every single day. Other opportunities for board member engagement include NICON, the New York Council of Nonprofits. This is one of the premier, oldest nonprofit board training organizations. They hold an annual conference. We have money in the budget if you'd like to be a part of that organization. I included for reference a sample communications document that they put out just as evidence of it's in the board package, just some of the things that they do. But I recommend if anyone is interested, the annual meeting is coming up in May. So those of you who have written, we will be signing you up, and thank you for that. And if you are interested, I sent an email a little while ago, or feel free to just shoot me an email and say you want to be a NICON member, and we'll get you signed up. Finally, I'd like to mention the New York Land Bank Association 2022 legislative priorities that's in your board package. I thought it was interesting to me and possibly interesting to you to see what we're all doing as kind of a community of 26 land banks in New York State. This is what we're pushing for. One of the items that's flagged in that package includes a request to change the law, the land bank law, to allow for employees, salaried employees of land banks to participate in NICELRS, which is the New York State something retirement fund, that is just a way that we're targeting different ways to give land banks more ability to participate in things like that. But the entire legislative priorities list is in that package. I think a lot of it's really interesting, and just wanted to give you a window into what's going on more globally. But that is it, unless anyone has any questions, or if you have any issues or anything, always feel free to email me, and we'll try to sort it out. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Just housekeeping. Do we need to accept meeting minutes from last time anymore?
No, welcome to the new world. The new world of the law. The governor signed into law allowing for public authorities the minutes, the recording, this meeting shall constitute the minutes by posting it on YouTube within 2 weeks of the meeting, which I do. No more meeting minutes.
Do we accept the recording as fair and accurate or something?
It's no shade on Bartek, but it's just as accurate as Bartek's meeting minutes were for the past 3 years. It is the case that Bartek's been sending around a memorialization of the votes that were taken. And I think that's a helpful piece of it as well, but it's accurate.
Yeah, so I am taking note of the votes and also the resolutions. So as of January, every vote has a resolution number tied to it. And you'll see that on the drive under meeting minutes for each meeting.
Thank you very much. Mike, in the future, can we just include that in the board package? Just so it's...
Absolutely. It's a great idea. I'll send that around now for last month, just so people have it.
Cool. Okay, we'll skip the the vote to accept it because I don't know what we're accepting. All right. Legacy Cities Architects Election Task Force. I'm not sure who's giving that report. Is it me? Is it you? Is it Owen? Is it Bob? Should I try it?
Last time it was a combination of you and Bob that did it.
I'll take a stab. So we basically same group that evaluated the last round of architects. We received, like I said, 10 proposals. They had a range of price. I think very astutely, we asked for hourly rates and a not to exceed number. So everybody except for I think one submitted both of those things. And so that was really helpful. We've been working hourly with KDA currently on 149 Greenkill and 124 Franklin. As far as I know, those invoices have been significantly lower than we had sort of anticipated. Humbly, I think in large part due to some of the work that the design committee did to sort of take the load off of the architects a little bit. So anyway, we reviewed their proposals. From there, we had about half that were local to the region, not necessarily Kingston, and about half were in New York City. We whittled down to 4 that are all regional, including our existing architects at KDA. Interviewed 3 since we already know KDA, so we interviewed the other ones. And we're not asking for a vote tonight. No. Okay. Should I recap the... Are we ever doing a vote, or is this just part of the...
I think this is just an update, in the progress. It'll be blending into the Legacy Cities project, so it'll just kind of be project updates.
Right. Okay. So I think we're close to making a selection, and we feel pretty good about them as a group. Beyond that, what else? Anything to add? It was a boatload of fun. And once again, huge thank you to Owen for making all of that happen. He's doing an excellent job at keeping us on our very tight timeline, so we really appreciate it. Okay, with that, Bob, or I guess Owen, do you want to give a construction report, and then Bob can take over for ACD?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
As Mike mentioned, the two properties we have under construction right now are 149 in Greenkill and 124 Franklin Street. Greenkill is going well, I would say, fairly uneventful, which is good in construction. We're wrapping up the plumbing, electrical, mechanical rough-ins right now and about to proceed into drywall. Main thing on my end of the situation is just in the kind of like paperwork phase of the project, mopping up after just making sure that any changes that have come out in the current build set are incorporated into our contract with the builder. Changes that have happened since the bid set. At 124 Franklin, the electricity is on in that building. The meter is running. The demo scope that we hired out is substantially complete. There used to be an addition on that house, and there's no longer an addition. The water meter will be going in on Friday for the first time in at least 24 years, but probably much longer than that. For those who haven't heard, I think Daniel told me the property's been empty 40 years, but we know the city disconnected the water line from their main in 1998. So it's definitely been empty a long time. So anyway, it's gonna have water and power very soon. And then all of the scope chunks that we wanted to self-perform before putting it out to a GC have been completed, except for the roof and roof structure scope, which is being discussed currently with our architects, KDA. And we are working with KDA to prepare for the release of our general contractor RFP, our re-release RFP, return of the RFP, which will be coming out bigger and better to very shortly. And then pretty much the other things that I wanted to cover were covered already, which is the Legacy City Architect RFP being closed, and the asbestos RFP for Legacy Cities is also closed, and I think you'll be hearing more about that later. That's it in construction. Thanks.
Thank you. If I could just note real fast, as with any of our buildings, but particularly those two, because they are in progress, if board members want to view them, take a tour, please do it. It's the crux of our work. It makes it feel real. And this is an exciting time to go see it because it'll be totally different in a few months. So please reach out to Mike or me or Owen or all three of us. We will coordinate a time. We will get you in there. We have the keys. It's not that hard. So yeah.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on what Daniel was saying, I mean, Daniel lives close too, but I live like a block and a half from each of these properties. It's really, it takes very little out of my week to bring you there and let you in. So don't feel like it's a big deal. Just call me.
Same goes, I think, for the Legacy Cities houses. Obviously, those have not started yet, although we have done the clean outs and basically like site cleanup for the really overgrown ones. So also a good time to get in there and see what we're all talking about constantly. So yeah. Bob.
All right. I would just piggyback on that. Also, seeing them before they're cleaned out is also a very interesting experience. So I would encourage you to look like 111 Downs. I don't know if it's cleaned out yet, but no, that would be, that's also worth a half an hour to, I found that emotional. I mean, it's really quite interesting. And I also depart the text and lobby for all of us, and I've already done this, and I suggest that everyone on the board do this. Reach out to your common council member and say that you would like them to approve the recovery plan that the mayor just released. The next step is they're voting on it. And so our $1,000,001 is in the crux here. So let your council person know that it's important. I don't know if many people reach out to them. Some get back to you, some don't. But I would encourage you to do that. Take a couple of minutes, write them an email and tell them to do the right thing. Let me ask, I have a question for Mike. Well, we had an exciting acquisition, disposition, and construction meeting. We elected a new chair or the same chair. The asbestos survey, we reviewed proposals to do hazardous waste asbestos surveys for the 5 legacy houses that we're doing, four of them actually. We selected a contractor, but my understanding is that contractor will be hired by the Housing Fund Development Corporation that we just created, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know if it needs board action or not. So I'll put that to Mike.
Thank you. It is something that will be paid for by the HDFC and reimbursed to the HDFC to pass back through to the land bank at the closing table when we do close on these homes in April or May. So I don't believe this is something, because we've formed a partnership, or we're finalizing our formation of a partnership. It's kind of a gray area. I think it's a great idea to keep everybody in the loop on what we're doing, but it's not ultimately the Kingston City Land Bank's contract or the Kingston City Land Bank's money. So that was my thinking, is maybe oversharing is good, but it does not require the same level of board level approval if it were a Kingston City Land Bank expense.
Okay. So just by way of keeping everybody in the loop, we chose an asbestos survey services fund, a company called Ambient Environmental. We've worked with them before. We had 3 proposals. These guys have a track history with us. They're good. The cost was reasonable. So we are going to recommend that be the firm that does the work. They seem to be pretty good. Not that any of them were bad. I mean, they're all good, but we had know these guys. So now the exciting part, we looked at proposals for the 2 houses that we had requested proposals for to develop. And what I'm talking about is the one on Hamilton and the one on Henry. And we went through the proposals and we looked at the submissions, and the committee decided that it would be appropriate to sell the Hamilton house to one of the proposers, Scott, I'm going to say it wrong again, Neld, who was one of the proposers, one of the 3 proposers. He seemed to be the most capable of delivering the house completed. It's going to be owner occupied as his proposal, which is something that we like. And certainly you can look at his proposal if you so desire. But our recommendation is that we authorize Mike to begin negotiations with Mr. Neild about the sale of this property. And I presume that needs a board action. So, Daniel.
It's probably pertinent to say, so we asked 34.9.
4,995.
Yes.
Right.
34,995, because we're professional realtors. No, but that was our asking price. Scott offered
25.
So which was in large, justification was unknown asbestos and lead remediation costs. I think the committee's general consensus was that that was fair. We paid a little less than that for the property, so it's still a little bit of revenue for the organization. And I explained this to the committee as well, but I've known Scott for several years, so I will be recusing myself from this vote. But I will say I have full confidence that he will deliver, and wholeheartedly recommend the disposition to him. So
Just a comment. What I would like to do, if this works for the board, is to come back to the ADC committee with a contract and go back through for an actual sale. So this is just an approval for me to negotiate and come back with the best deal that works for all parties, with full communication with the board and the committees. So if that helps.
Quick question, did the RFP get sent around for us to look at before we vote on this? Or is it up on the website?
Be happy to send it around. Oh, that was, I'm sorry, Nate, I couldn't see who was speaking. It was up on the website. It has been, the posting has been taken down, but I'll send it around if you're interested.
Or I guess their proposal that they sent, was that something that can be circulated?
I think they were all circulated.
Oh, were they? Okay.
Were they not?
I think they stayed at the committee level.
Oh, okay.
If the committee's okay with it, if
Yeah,
everybody's okay
I would
with it.
see no reason not to circulate them.
All right.
The question is a proposal in response to an RFP confidential or not? And, you know, sometimes you can get into things like, you know, trade secrets and other things that might appear in a proposal. My read of these proposals is that there are no things like that in there, but I don't know if we want to expose ourselves to that discussion. And so I would suggest that that we keep them confidential. And if that's, then I don't see any reason not to circulate them to the board.
We don't have to either if it's a big issue. I just figured if we're voting on it, we should probably have a chance to look at it first.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
So I guess I would say this time around, just a suggestion, these were submitted in December. So, you know, typically you put in an offer on a house and you hear back pretty quickly. These folks have all been waiting a very long time to find out. So I guess I'm wondering if you have sort of specific questions about the proposal that we could answer so that we could still hold a vote and not delay this another month.
Oh yeah, no, I don't want to delay it. I mean, I'm more than happy to like go forward with the committee's recommendation. I don't know, just if we have to vote on something, just want to make sure it's not a blind vote, you know.
For sure. So I think maybe I'll try to add a little bit of detail that Bob, to add on to Bob. So yes, owner occupied. He, you know, we looked at all the factors and it was a pretty exhaustive review, but we felt at the end of the day that he, out of all the proposers, had kind of the best and highest use of the property. We felt he had a very realistic budget and timeline, which was lacking in other proposals. For what it's worth, Scott is a local small business owner. He owns Cloven Creek in downtown Kingston. He's also on the Roundout Business Association board. Don't quote me, but I think that's right. So involved member of the community, intends to stay here a long time, needs housing. And we thought his proposal was realistic and achievable. He also supplied a pre-qualification letter. He was good, I mean, when we do these RFPs, we get responses that are often deficient in various ways. And so we have to reach out and clarify all that information and get more information. And Scott was very responsive to those requests. And so for those reasons, among others, I think.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I mean, there was 3 proposers. One was to make it into a rental unit, and their price was, and which caused us to be somewhat uncomfortable, and their financing didn't look sound. The second was that someone who had intended to be owner occupied, but their concept of the work necessary to save the house was woefully inadequate, as was their budget, as was their financing, and we didn't think that they would be successful. Didn't look good. And then there was the successful proposer. So it was, that's kind of the summary. I would suggest in the future that board members that are interested in reviewing RFPs and proposals certainly should, and I don't see any reason why we wouldn't want to do that. Or Nate, if you have free time, you can come to the committee meeting and we can dump the whole thing in your lap.
Sure, why not? What's one more committee to throw me on?
Right,
right?
nothing to. Do we need to vote on this? We want to vote to authorize Mike to enter into negotiations? And if so, Daniel, are you entertaining a motion?
I sure am, Bob.
So as the committee chair, I'll move that we authorize Mike to enter into negotiations for the sale of this house on Hamilton.
I'll second that.
All in favor of authorizing our executive director to enter into negotiations with Scott Neild for the sale of 24 Hamilton? I see 5 ayes. Alana, I'm not sure how you're voting because I can't see you if you are voting.
There, she raised her hand. She's good.
Thank you. Great job. And so I think we have 6 ayes and 1 abstain. I believe. Okay.
Okay, let's talk about the next item on the the acquisition, disposition, and construction is the house on Henry Street. We solicited proposals. We received proposals, 4 of them. And after reviewing the proposals and thinking about things in general, the committee's recommendation is that we not sell the house at this time. The proposals seem to be, were not really complete. And our thoughts were that it's really a better candidate for the next series of, for the next Legacy Cities project. It's a multifamily house. It's in an ideal, it's in a neighborhood that'd be great for that. We're looking for candidates. So at this point, the committee's recommendation is that we not sell the house at this time and hold it for a future disposition, possibly Legacy Cities. So I don't think it needs any action by the board, I guess, right? Not gonna do anything.
Are we gonna respond to, do we need any kind of, we don't need any board authorization to respond to the people who applied, okay.
Right, what we're suggesting, what the committee suggested was that we write a letter to the proposers, thanking them for their effort and explaining that we did not receive any proposals that were responsive to our RFP and that they should keep their attention for future opportunities.
Could you speak to maybe 1 or 2 of the proposals, Bob, and why they were inadequate?
Well, we're offering a debrief if people would like to be debriefed on their proposals,
Okay.
which I'm encouraging. I think we can learn as much as they can by a debrief. It's hard to believe, but our Owen did a great job with these requests for proposals, but as in all things like this, they're not perfect. And I think hearing from those that proposed might be a benefit long-term. So we're going to offer that opportunity for them to come and be debrief us and we can debrief them.
I'll just say to answer, Nate, quickly to answer your question though a little bit, and Bob jump in to add, one of the proposals was an investment property, like the person wanted as an investment property, and I think even the proposed rents that the person was kind of suggesting felt too high. And of course, we prefer to provide a permanent home as opposed to an investment property. There was another proposal that I personally felt the applicant would make a great, would have been great if it was a home that was already rehabbed. But the thing about this home is it's a huge duplex that requires a significant amount of work and a lot of wherewithal to, hire a general contractor, work through the lead and mold and environmental issues, just actually do the construction job. And he didn't have the financing, the budget for that, or the experience to kind of navigate that with such a big property. So there were just, given the particularities, there were issues across the board.
Yeah, there were. So that's just I guess that's more of an update to the board about where we are with the sale of these properties. We'll hopefully the Hamilton will work out, and Henry, I think, is a great candidate for Legacy too. And we even talked about the fact that also means that we're going to have some expense as we own this thing, this big old empty 2-family house. There's expense required owning a house, keeping it from further decay, which is a huge issue for the houses that we have. Some of the houses we've taken on have huge issues there. Now, I'm not talking about German, don't worry, Dan.
Yeah, I would just add, I think I don't want the board to feel discouraged by the sort of anemic response to these RFPs, because I think both of these properties are very weird for us. Generally, 24 Hamilton is a 600 square foot, 1-bedroom, half-bathroom house, no shower. And 108 110 Henry is a very large duplex that needs a lot. So I think if and when we go to do a single family home through RFP as a Pathway 3 project, I think we'll likely have more respondents to consider. So that's it. No.
Okay, so I'm done. I think I'm done, Daniel. I think I can go back to sleep and
You did.
Listen.
Sweet dreams. Okay. Nate, your maiden voyage into giving a treasurer's report. Do your worst.
Thank you. Well, Erica actually looks like joined us, so I don't have to.
Okay, I'll take over.
I'll defer to you on this one.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I don't have the camera and I don't have the best connection, so I hope that's okay with everyone. So can I share my screen? Or is it okay if I just do, if everyone's had a chance to look at the financials, we can just do a high-level review, if that's okay? Head nods, yeah.
Erica,
Yeah.
floor is yours.
Okay, perfect. So there's not a lot of activity. Obviously, it's the first month of the year. Some of the high-level items that impacted revenue, that we received application fees for Henry Street, as well as, I'm going to say the wrong address, but the 2 houses were in question for A and D. So we had $600 in revenue for those application fees. And then we had, we also brought in about $2,500 in the holiday fundraiser. That was just the contributions that came in January itself, opposed to the donations that were received in December. The expenses that we incurred were mostly for Greenkill. We made our first payments out to Maida for 149 Greenkill, and we had nominal expenses for landscaping, but mostly the construction materials that were approved by the board at the end of the year. We are in a really good position as far as cash goes, because again, in December, we received the payments from Novo, as well as we submitted an application for the $115,000 that was the remaining balance from Enterprise, which we're still working on closing out that process with them. We're very close. Other than that, there wasn't much out of normal activity. It was predominantly the construction materials as well as the consultant fees. We'll see more you'll see more in February, really, as far as the activity goes on 149 Green Hill as well. Were there any questions that anyone had? I feel like this was a pretty kind of cut and dry month.
Thank you, Erica. I don't think there's any.
Sorry.
Well done.
Thanks.
Nate, anything to add to that?
No, I think we're good.
Great. So I will entertain a motion to accept the monthly treasurer's report. Anytime, don't be shy.
Can I move to accept the treasurer's report? Then I
Sure.
will, sure, motion to accept the treasurer's report.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor of accepting February 2022's treasurer report? Alana's hand is still raised, but I'm not sure.
She put it down and put it back up. I watched her do
She
it.
did, okay.
Yeah.
I believe motion passes unanimously then, thank you. Okay, cool. Erin, you're our new fundraising committee chair. Tell us the good word.
So the fundraising committee met kind of 1.5 times, so kind of twice this month. We met once formally, where we did, Mike and Daniel gave us, gave the committee, who the other members of whom are also like me, new to the board, a recap of prior fundraising efforts, different things that have been successful, different balls that were dropped that the board wanted, that they thought the committee should pick up. And we started throwing around a few fundraising ideas, at the end of which Daniel suggested we meet up again to start thinking about a fundraising strategic plan. So we met, was that last week? We met last week at Daniel's house and began throwing around ideas and thinking about a timeline for different fundraising efforts. A big question that we had to do with how to coordinate fundraising efforts with the what's it called, marketing of the different homes. And so we began discussing whether to market, as Mike said, whether to market the one home separately and have a separate fundraising campaign, and then have another fundraising campaign for the Legacy City homes later on in the year. And I think that's, after a lot of back and forth, that's kind of where we ended up, although of course that involves additional conversations with other committees as well. So there are a few things that we've kind of begun doing. One, Mike got back in touch with the Dyson Foundation, who I guess Mike, he had a conversation with last year about potentially supporting us. And so Mike and I are meeting with the Dyson Foundation later this week to discuss the land bank's efforts and how the Dyson Foundation might be involved. I think they do a lot of capacity building giving, so it might be something like money for a larger organizational strategic plan, but what exactly it looks like is still TBD. Another topic thing that's come up a few times, in both the meetings, was that we currently was how to expand the ways in which we accept donations, and so we began conversations about how we might do that. Erica, I know in the past had expressed some reservations about accepting donations through different outlets like PayPal, because they created a lot of additional work for her, because they're not automated. Because right now we only accept through GiveGab, which has an automated system. I reached out to Erica because I'm willing to take on a little bit of that extra work if it's just organizing the kind of donations as they come in or whatever it is. And so I'm going to speak to Erica later this week about how what it might look like and what it would actually entail. I don't want to promise it yet because we need Erica's buy-in, of course, but I just want to get a sense of what the issues that arose were. And then we've begun compiling a list of businesses and other organizations to reach out to. Thought about some events, perhaps some new merchandise and a landscaping event at Greenkill later in the spring, and some other things like that. I don't know how much detail I really need to go into today. Nothing's for a vote today. I think the committee is meeting again in a week or so. And we have some more work to do to iron out some details. And then we will come back to the board with some ideas and suggestions. Minya, Daniel, Minya, did I get everything? What else is there?
The only thing I wanted to bring up was just something, Mike, you had mentioned after Bartek had mentioned just something about the ambassador program. Mike, you had said, did you want us to talk about a little bit about that for the rest of the board? About some of the discussion, or did you want to wait till we had another meeting?
I was actually thinking that could come up in the comms meeting, for the report on the comms meeting, but I think it would be helpful to talk about it. Thanks.
So that's it for fundraising then, and which was next?
Thank you, Aaron. Excellent recap. Now comes in community engagement. I think it's still Bartek. Is it still Bartek? Okay.
Well, we actually ran out of time and we did not elect a chair. And also all members of the committee weren't present. So we technically don't have a chair. So the only thing that we discussed was the ambassador program. So I don't know, Minya, do you want to kick it off? And then Alana and myself can chime in. If
Sure.
Great.
So let me just get my, all right. So, and if I get any of this wrong or incomplete, please just let me know. So, so we had talked about in our discussion about different possibilities. So for people who are new or haven't heard this before, the ambassador program was the idea of either offering having people who are actually will be trained to represent the land bank and what we have. They not to actually promote the houses that we're getting ready to sell, but to actually just give people information about how the land bank works, get the word out there, get people out to the community as far as possible, so that more people, so it's more far-reaching and more people are aware of what we're doing. The idea to begin with was that we would have 9 people. We had a budget. Oh, sorry, I didn't actually put that in my immediate notes. Was it $545 per ambassador? Is that correct? And we had a proposal for 9 people. We discussed reducing it to 2 to 3 people, and maybe trying to figure out if it's possible to compensate higher, if that's correct. And since it's a small community and some people have a far reach into this community, the idea was that they might be able to cover more ground and have a better compensation option. We talked about having gift cards, either from local community businesses or from big box stores. And there was a discussion that is sort of in the process of being ironed out about whether we have the possibility or capacity to do a cash compensation as opposed to gift cards, so people have more of a choice of how they spend their money, or more in the lines of possible compensation that certain organizations do when they have a canvassing process, where they send out people to canvas community and they have compensation that way. The pros of that, basically what I wrote down is having less people, the compensation at a higher rate is a possibility. We would have less people to manage, and we're also supporting community members financially. The cons is possibly that were brought up, or possibly less reach into the community, and then that the income would have to be reported to the IRS if we did compensate in cash. And so we discussed about maybe if we had to go with gift cards, that would be more of a big box store that would give people a little bit more choice what to do. And then I mean, that's basically where I have us to, where I got to, and the rest is just up for discussion, I think, in our next meeting. If I've missed anything, or even just ideas, I have that in my notes, but I don't need to talk about that right now.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that is we also discussed whether to tell the ambassadors, okay, you have 3 months, you need to host 5 events, and these are the topics, or whether it's a little bit more flexible of a structure in which they propose to us, the program that they would propose in terms of reaching out to the community. So that's just another item we discussed.
Can I ask a couple questions? Just because I'm sort of out of the loop on this, so I know that we authorized a budget line for it, and thank you guys for obviously starting work on it. I guess, yeah, if you could you speak more to just sort of what it is these ambassadors will actually be doing? Will they have sort of a set of real deliverables, like?
Well, yeah, that relates to my comment. Is we could say, okay, so your goal is to get the word out about the land bank, and educate the Kingston community about what we do. So we could say, here are the 5 events that you need to. The deliverables are 5 different outreach events, let's say, and these are the 5 topics you should cover. So we could impose that kind of a rigid structure, or maybe on the opposite end of the spectrum, we could say, here's the goal. Now, please give us a proposal of how you think you could achieve that. So I think there's many possible answers to your question, and approaches that we haven't landed, but we haven't landed on the best one.
And as a follow-up, I guess, has there been discussion of, I guess, why this isn't being undertaken by board members? I mean, it seems like if we're sending people out into the community, I guess that makes sense to me in the way of expanding beyond the board, but if the board is not doing these things, I don't really understand why we're asking other people to.
So this, the Community Ambassador Program was something that was suggested in a land bank conference that I did with Center for Community Progress. They were highlighting several different several different land banks throughout the I guess the nation, and kind of highlighting some specific things that they did that really benefited their organization, and how it's something to kind of take in mind how it could work. So I brought that back to Mike. We had already talked about different types of community engagement. There's always been some sort of conversation with the comms team. So I thought it was a really awesome way to get the community informed and involved and excited about what KCLB is doing specifically, because I feel like what you guys are doing is very different from the other land banks, and you're really successful at it. And it's very exciting to get like real information out there. So that's kind of where I jumped in. So yes, I think you guys are all doing your work and putting that out as a board, but it's also really, it's a good way to have the community kind of speak to what you guys are doing. You know, it's like just another trustful ear.
Have you?
And I'll jump off on that with Erica as a proposal to getting that out. There is also reach. There's people that will be able to reach the community more than any of us here, hands down. And so if we want to actually get out to community members that may not have heard it before, approaching people who have that trust and have that community outreach and compensating them for it is a really good look. And it's also a good thing to do. Asking us to do it, it's not going to have as wide a reach. And if, for instance, the people I'm thinking of have been here for their entire life and will know where to go and what to do and have, you know, I'm happy to even, you know, I have friends that I can go and I can talk in the church services, I can go to Sunday dinners, I can do things like that. But it's also, there's people out there that will have even more reach than I will. And you know, yeah, we could do it, but if we have the budget for it, it would be nice to actually compensate some people who would be enthusiastic to be able to bring that out into the community. And some of the people I've talked to are excited about that prospect if it comes up as a possibility for them. So I don't know that, I don't know if that answers your question, but would be my 2 cents.
Cool, thank you. I think, like, just I would suggest, I guess, that as you're having these conversations, I guess also think about how board members can contribute to this effort and assist these ambassadors, because I know I've been at this for over 3 years and I still stumble over some of the information. So I guess it's going to take a lot of preparation to make sure that we're consistent in our information and in our messaging. So
Yeah, and we actually have discussed that because, you know, these are individuals that we're bringing on and compensating them. There will be a set of deliverables, and it actually needs to be Mike who manages them. And, you know, Mike will be their single point of contact. And Mike, correct me if I messed that up, but I think that's what we've discussed.
No, we did agree that I would manage the program. I can't manage what I can't measure, so I look forward to figuring out what everybody's supposed to be doing and why they're there and what this is all supposed to look like before we get into like doing a call to action. We had talked at the last meeting, I think, about, you know, sending an email to try to solicit interest from the community. But I think until we're sure what we're doing and why, I think it would go a lot easier if we define that first.
for sure.
For what that's worth.
Is there sort of a idea of a timeline right now, or kind of still a little ways away from that? Not really. Okay. Okay. Cool. Keep us updated. Let us know how we can help. Thank you.
I thought we were just gonna kind of pull that together in the next meeting, just because there were still things up in the air, particularly about how this is actually going to be, compensation methods, people, amount, everything. Once we have that, then we can, and obviously we'll, you guys will have a look at our proposal and what we're going to be teaching people and how we're going to be doing it when we have that ironed out. So.
Thank you. Cool. I know we've discussed that for a very long time, so it's exciting to, thanks for taking it up. Very cool. Okay. Sorry, is there more on the comms committee report?
That's it, Daniel.
Okay. Thank you, Bartek. Thank you, Minya. Thank you, everyone. Okay, governance committee did not meet. I don't think there's any updates there. Design committee did not meet, but I will just note we're trying to get a meeting on the books. This is interesting. We're the only committee that has non-board members on it, and so we're learning sort of the boundaries of what people who aren't crazy enough to join this board feel about their time. So Nate is my fellow board member on the committee, so we may just have a meeting, he and I, but basically as legacy cities and the timeline around that comes into focus, I think one of the things that is fairly pressing is to start trying to recruit other members from the community. So if you know any experienced designers in particular, please let them know that we may want to talk to them. Obviously, we will put those calls out on social media and elsewhere. So that's one of the subjects of the meeting that we're trying to get on the books is how we're going to conduct that kind of outreach to make sure that we're reaching a broad audience and getting some talented folks in there. So yeah, that'll be really interesting. Otherwise, I think this kind of experiment is actually going pretty well. Owen has been really great at working with Jessica Farkas, who is not on our board, but is the lead designer on 149 Greenkill. She's doing a good job. Owen has been very helpful with sort of managing some of the complications of that. And we're sort of feeling our way. So I'm glad that it started kind of just with one person. And I think we're getting a clearer picture of how to effectively expand so that this actually achieves what it's supposed to and isn't just sort of a vanity project. So that's that. Next, I guess, any questions on that or any other committee report? Cool. Okay, we have another public comments period. We still have one member of the public. She's good. We're just thrilled to have you. Okay, now, new business. So we have, like we mentioned, Kyle is with us. I sent around his resume and a draft of his contract earlier. This is a funny one because as a board, we have authorized Mike to make this hire already in the interest of transparency and keeping everybody involved and feeling confident about our staff members. I've asked Kyle to be here and be available for questions. We can move into executive session as this is a personnel matter. If you guys want to do that, I'm fine with skipping it. So totally up to the board. How you feeling?
I'll just say, there's no vote happening on it, but I'll just say that full transparency, I know Kyle personally because we went to graduate school together. I think I alerted him to this position, but Kyle's great and I'm sure he'll do a great job.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, you alerted me to the position. Sounds super interesting to me. Happy to answer any questions you might have or kind of run through my resume or background if you guys want me to. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure how the agenda works with this, but yeah.
Neither are we. Yeah, I mean, do you want to maybe just sort of introduce yourself? Tell us a little about yourself and
yeah,
what
sure.
This moment.
Yeah, so like Aaron said, he alerted me to this position first. We graduated from the Harvard GSD in an urban planning program this past year. And since then, I've toured Kingston with Mike, ran into Bob on the tour, and hello again, had a meeting with Daniel and Mike, so I've met a lot of the team. Super excited about the position. I guess prior to grad school, I was working in real estate finance in New York City. I was working on all asset types, including housing, all over the country. I worked for a bridge lender, so my job was to analyze the implementations of business plans, renovations, developments, rehabs, rebrandings, that type of stuff, and kind of see a property go from one state to another and analyze that kind of from all perspectives, from the financing side, from the construction side, from the development, ownership side, whatever it may be. But yeah, in that job, I kind of became frustrated with a lot of the damage I was seeing caused by this real estate finance complex. And I decided to look into urban planning, in particular, to kind of figure out how I could tackle a lot of these issues I was seeing in the real estate market, particularly housing issues. Yeah, so I graduated this last year, and I've been looking for this opportunity to take this skill set I had from the real estate finance world and put it to work in a community that's open to some creative and ambitious solutions. I think Kingston's a super interesting town. Full transparency, I haven't spent a ton of time there, but I've been up there, and I'm from the North Jersey tri-state area. I think there's, Kingston's kind of a microcosm of a lot of what we're seeing with housing and real estate across the country, a lot of the issues we're seeing. So yeah, I'm really excited to get the opportunity to help out, locally, but also to set a good example for communities that might be facing similar issues. I think Eric was speaking this earlier. This is a very kind of special organization. I've looked around, I haven't seen a lot of things, a lot of groups doing similar work. And so, yeah, it's a super exciting opportunity. I'd love to join. Yeah. But yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
I mean, I resume looks fantastic. I even looked at part of your thesis, which had some serious seasoning. I have to say, it was pretty impressive. So I mean, I was impressed.
You found that.
I did. I looked. I was just curious. It looked interesting, and I was like, oh yeah, this is the kind of person I think would be really good fit. I mean, that was good. So
happy to talk about that if you have several hours and
right.
feel like getting. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Kyle, it's good to meet you. I guess my only question, and I haven't discussed this with Mike or Daniel in terms of the position, but you're going to remain in New York, is that correct? Or are you just curious physically where you're going to be?
Yeah, right now I'm in New York City. The plan is to eventually transition to spend, I think, most of my time up in Kingston, if not move full time. Just be there, for any meetings and site visits. And yeah, I want to make it up there. So I'm spending the majority of time up in Kingston, just as, yeah, that's something I need to figure out the exact specifics should we move forward with this.
And if I could just jump in a little bit, Bartek, this position, thankfully, is an entirely remote position at this point. There will be requirements for site visits for construction requisitions and things like that. But Kyle and I talked about that a lot in terms of the timing. As things open back up, which I hope they do, and meetings become more in person, things like that, we're just going to kind of evolve in that direction. But at this time, I think Kyle sitting where Kyle's at right now is 100% capable to keep the Legacy Cities programs or other development pipeline. You can be like me and jockey a computer all day for some of it, but we'll see where that goes.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah.
So now we have the awkward choice of, do we do a vote? We don't technically have to, but we can. Should we have a vote on whether we have a vote? No, I'm just kidding.
Should I jump off or?
Well, I don't think so. I don't.
Yeah, I would suggest, Daniel, that if unnecessary votes are not necessarily a good thing.
Okay.
So if we don't need to do one.
We do not need to do one. So, Kyle, thank you for sitting through our meeting. We very much look forward to working with you, knowing more about you, hopefully seeing you in Kingston soon. And great. And Mike, I mean, he detailed in an email earlier the search that he undertook for this, and it was very broad, way more than I even realized. So
The entire world to find this guy, this person.
No pressure, Kyle.
Yeah.
I would suggest, Mike, the board as a whole could benefit from that narrative.
Sure.
Just, I think it I think the whole board should see it if that's
Okay,
reasonable.
yeah. Sure. Send it around.
Well, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Is there any other new business announcements, call outs? Well, barring that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Great.
I'll second.
All in favor of adjourning February's meeting? Motion passes unanimously among our present members. Thank you, everybody. Great to see you all. See you
Right,
at meetings.
Write your council person.
Write your council person, do your ABO training.
Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys,
Thanks, everyone.
bye.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.